Once Upon Time. We are now officially at the halfway point of Doctor Who Flux, and it's still consistently keeping me engaged. I think this may have been the approach Chibnall probably should have done throughout his entire planning of this show. Frankly, the whole season just is starting to feel tighter. I feel more interested in things going on, and I will say it feels like, it's funny, in working in this confined pattern that he's doing with, it's oddly enough seems like he's been able to spread his wings as far as what he intends to do. Also, you get the vibe that because he's taken full control of this entire season, he's been able to flesh out some of his ideas a bit more. Now, like I said at the beginning, again, we can't really know for sure until he sticks the landing, but I will say the road getting there has definitely been a lot more interesting than I ever anticipated. Given the fact that I didn't really have much in the way of anticipation for the next season, just because I'd been kind of, admittedly, a lot of the venom and vitriol of the fan base has been kind of turning me off. Admittedly, I've been very delighted and surprised that all it took was just like 1 or 2 episodes to make me go, okay, I'm ready for the next episode. So they're doing something right here. And this one really took the opportunity to tell a story, or at least tell a segment of the story, that remarkably, Chibnall has been able to do something that he's pretty much never been able to do in his first 2 seasons, specifically have an episode where it has equal attention to all of his companions. And they did a great job here. I mean, you get Yaz with her sister, you have Dan as he's actually going on that date that he wanted to go on with his girl. I'm getting ahead of myself, but the thing that really gets your attention about this one is that instead of resolving the cliffhanger like most common Doctor Who tends to, this one completely goes in a different direction, where you're seeing the odyssey of a girl named Belle, and you're seeing that she's kind of a badass. She's really good at hiding. She's really good at avoiding danger, but when she has to face danger, she's pretty good at facing it head on. And she's talking to someone who's obviously not there, but you can tell she's looking for this person. And she's actually a very engaging personality, and you are definitely pro her surviving. You really do care. They do a good job making you care. So every time they revisit her, I'm not going, oh god, we got to go back to her and get back to the thing. No, I actually am interested to see how she comes into play in the end of everything. Now, unlike a lot of other plot threads set up in the first episode, which are obviously very gradually getting paid off as this thing goes on, this one actually does, at least to an extent, get some kind of clarification by the end of the episode. For that, I will actually be very discreet about, but suffice to say, she does actually come into play with one of our core cast. And meanwhile, with the solution, you have the Doctor basically launching herself into this, into something of a time storm to basically keep her and all of her companions safe. But unfortunately, this also kind of puts them in some form of risk. But she's also, in order to fish them out, she's trying to insert herself into those timelines. So basically to let them know, hey, I'm still here. I'm trying to get you out. We're almost seeing like 3 or 4 different stories happening at the same time. And all of them get equal attention, and all of them enrich the characters. So I'm actually really impressed about this episode. And we also get some nice little nostalgia goodies. And again, I hate the fact that we had to call this nostalgic, but we do actually get some great Weeping Angels action in this episode. Some harkening back to that great sequence in The Time of Angels, where with the screen bit, of course, the classic, that which holds the image of an angel is in itself an angel. But we actually get a great segment involving a video game, which I admit, well, if you've actually played that one app that came out, it kind of reminded me a lot like that. And that app actually did freak me out just a bit. So they actually kind of brought that out, and it was great to see her. And it was actually really cool seeing Yaz having to deal with them. And knowing that the next episode is going to be all about the Weeping Angels, it will be fascinating to see how this menace is handled in the hands of another writer, because no one but Moffat ever wrote them. So it'll be intriguing to see what other ideas Chibnall can bring to the table. I don't know. Done such a great job with all the other classic monsters throughout his run of the show, so I'm okay with seeing what he's going to do with one of the... and he actually did a pretty decent job with the Jadoon, so let's see what he does now with this next episode. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. The big thing that happens in this episode, which, again, going back to my whole thing about, well, let's wait and see what's going on with the timeless child. Let's see what's going on, what he's going to do with this plot. There's a little part of me kind of limbering up this arm to punch the air because because it's very clear that he wasn't just going to let it lie at the end of last season. It's very clear that they are building to where they're going to take the series after this. It's clear that with the Doctor's arc in this, it's going to kick off as to whatever plans they have for the show in the future. Who knows? Maybe Chibnall actually has spoken with Russell T Davies, and maybe RTD may actually find a way to springboard off of this. I don't know, but frankly, I am a lot more optimistic for the future because it's clear that they are doubling down on this whole story, and the reason why I feel this way is because of everything that's happening with the Doctor. Where in the Doctor's side of things, we see her on a battlefield with people who suspiciously look like Yaz, Dan, and Vinder, but are not identifying themselves as such. And every time the Doctor thinks she's seeing them, they're like, she's all wibbly wobbly confused kind of thing, and she keeps. But the thing that made it even cooler is that every time she looked in the mirror, she saw Dr. Ruth. And why the hell am I the only person still calling her Dr. Ruth? Come on, this should have been the hashtag the entire time. Dr. fucking Ruth. Not that, Dr. Ruth. But we actually get to see more of her. Joe Martin back in the role. One thing that has been alluded to many times is something called the Dark Times. There was a long time before the Time Lords ever really manifested and became the, pseudo-godlike beings of the universe. There was a very dark, turbulent period in the universe. But the thing is, we've never actually seen what the Dark Times are. We've never seen what they were like. And I'm getting this wonderful feeling that I think that the show is actually trying to lead us into that direction. And that's great because I've always wanted to see what was going on with the Dark Times, and to find out that they could have had something to do with the Flux, and to find out that the Doctor could have been much like the War Doctor for the Time War. That what if during the Doctor's time, working for this thing called the Division, which we don't know what that is, but we definitely know the Doctor had played a very heavy role in working with them. There's so much more mystery now with the Doctor that I'm excited about, which I'm hoping that if they keep doubling down like they're doing with the show, that I feel like that's going to be the big thing. We're going to find out more about the Doctor's life. We're going to find out what they got up to in the early days. But this episode, for this thread of the plot, really was showing that off. And another thing that's wicked, and I hope this becomes a talking point where people come to the realization why I'm so eager to find out about all this whole hidden life, is because Dr. Ruth's tactics versus the Doctor that we know and love, well, she's Dr. Ruthless, because she is at points sacrificing lives for the greater good. Now there have been some doctors in the past who've made that call, but to the extent that this Doctor does, there was a part of me going, ooh, this Doctor really didn't mince words about making some pretty big sacrifices. Now, granted, what she was saving everyone from was a pretty big deal, but even then, it's still the fact that the Doctor was willing to sacrifice billions of lives in order to capture Swarm and Azure. That's pretty foobar, but also interesting at the same time. Because, let's face it, when you come to the realization that, well, in a way, it's kind of like what Captain Jack Harkness, what was alluded to with Captain Jack Harkness, the idea that there were 2 years of his life taken away, and he has no idea what he did during that time. If you had the means to find out what you had going on during that time, whether you want to know because you're afraid that you got up to things that you will probably make yourself sick over contemplating. And I loved Jodie's performance when she sees the things that she got up to during that life, and finding out what other horrible things have I gotten up to back then, and how is the Doctor going to reconcile the person she was with the person she is now. This is all interesting stuff, which I was always hoping that they would get into when the big bomb dropped about the Timeless Child. So, and I love that this episode is really heavily hinting towards that. Now, we're even getting a little kind of hint at the possibility of what the Flux is. And again, and of course people are complaining, it's like, why aren't we finding out more about that? It's like going, because the season isn't over yet. We are going to, like, I'm pretty sure at some point during the course of this 6-part series, we're going to find out what the flux is. We're going to find out how she's going to stop it. We're going to find out everything. Doctor Who's one of those shows that has a tendency not to play all of its cards at an early point. And if they do, it's because they have a bigger game planned. So I am still with eager anticipation waiting to see what they're going to do next. I'm trying to be as vague as possible on this one because, frankly, there's a lot of really cool stuff that I saw in this episode that really got me excited. And someone heard my wish list because way ahead of time, because we did get to see, I don't know if it was actually Carvanista, but we got to see more of the Luparis. Can we just have more of them? Because honestly, I just want to cuddle them. But I like that they keep running through with them, and very clearly that race had a bigger part to play in the Doctor's past. So again, stuff that's making me interested in little breadcrumbs that they're laying for us in this episode. This whole episode just seemed to be dedicated to baiting us into being more intrigued for everything else that's going to come. That being said, we do get a lot more about Vinder this go around, which is good because the prior 2 episodes really didn't get deep into his history, but this time we do. Much like Dan, I mean, I don't know how long they're intended to stay on the show, but I mean, I'm expecting Dan to at least stay all the way till the end of Jodie's run, but I don't know how long Vinder's going to stay. I don't know, because I'm really enjoying these characters. I'm really enjoying everything that's going on. And even if I do have negative things to say about it, the metric for me to know that it's losing me is if I'm just watching the next episode out of obligation, as opposed to being legitimately excited about it. But everything I've been seeing so far has been getting my eyes open, making me going, I gotta see if this is going to, A, where this is going to go, B, what they're going to do next. And also, ultimately, this is just me being an optimist, but I'm hoping that this go around Chibnall sticks to landing, because his first season, you couldn't, an argument could be made that it wasn't even a season ender at all. His second one, I kind of laughed, but more out of just pure sadism, because I knew, all the other people were just going to go, rah, 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 and I was right. This time around, I really, really hope that he surprises everybody. And let's face it, since we now know that this is going to be the end of his run, that he's leaving and then Jodie's leaving with him, if he's able to, at the very least, wrap everything up nicely with a bow, then, you know what, I'd like to think it'll all have been worth it. So, I know this is kind of all over the place. Admittedly, I watched the episode a couple days ago. I'm also admittedly coming down from the sugar high of the last episode of Chucky. If you all want me to review Chucky, just leave it in the comments below, because frankly, I kind of really want to talk about Chucky. In the meantime, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this episode was a complete mess? Or do you think that this is one that's actually kind of leaning you in a direction you didn't think you'd feel regarding the route the Chibnall era is taking? Leave it all in the comments below, and for more addictive content and narcotic casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click, thou shalt be served.